Speaker.
I call Eugenie Sage.
E te manga o te whare tēnā koe, mena mema e hui hui mai, tēnā koutou katoa. Very pleased to take a call on the Greater Christchurch Regeneration Bill. As Mr Simpson said, it has been an unusual process, and thank him and the Minister for their comments recognising the role of other parties. When the Canterbury Earthquake Recovery Act expires in April this year, and the extraordinary powers that it provides to the Minister for Canterbury Earthquake Recovery and the Canterbury Earthquake Recovery Authority, or CERA, it's certainly the opportunity for a major step change in who makes decisions and how those decisions are made about Christchurch's future. And now that we're 5 years on from the devastating quakes in February 2011, we're over that emergency and immediate recovery phase, we do need to see a shift from central government to local leadership. And certainly the Select Committee did make some good changes to the bill as introduced, one of them being that the way regeneration is defined includes, as Nikki Wagner noted, improving the environmental, economic, social and cultural well-being and resilience of communities, which is a very positive change, particularly as government has stripped out from the purpose of local government, the promotion of our community wellbeing. It is really good to see that at the heart of this bill. But the Green Party opposed the bill as it came back from Select Committee because it didn't provide for a genuine partnership between central government and local authorities in planning and guiding the next stage of Christchurch's post-earthquake future. It contained far too many hangovers from the CERA era and from the CERA legislation, and it left far too much power with the executive, with central government ministers and agencies, particularly the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet, in their ability to initiate regeneration plans and then have the relevant minister approve or decline those plans at the end of the process. And this was particularly important because in this bill, it is not just the Minister for Earthquake Recovery who can exercise these decision-making and approval powers, but it's the relevant minister, depending on the function being exercised. So that could be the Minister of Transport, it could be the Minister of Land Information. And that whole concentration of power at the centre was in total opposition to the strong and eloquent call by submitters during those 2.5 days in Christchurch and through written submissions for local leadership, for a reduction in the power of central government and ministers and a much stronger role for people in Christchurch. And certainly for me, it has been organisations like Greening the Rubble and Gap Filler with their innovative, creative, community-oriented projects which have been inspiring and showing what Christchurch people are capable of, and in some of the private buildings which are quite innovative in their design and their construction, particularly where they use our local resource wood, that show what can happen in Christchurch where we have local people making those decisions. And it's especially important too when we've had democracy denied to the Canterbury region with the half-pie, half-appointed, half-elected model that we've got at ECAN. So this bill did need to establish a framework and a structure for decision-making which put Regenerate Christchurch as this new agency which is to symbolise and really epitomise the partnership between central government and local government at the heart of decision-making. Because, of course, Regenerate Christchurch has 4 members on its board who are appointed by central government, one on the nomination of Te Runanga o Ngāi Tahu, and it has other 3 members appointed by the City Council. So it is an embodiment of partnership. And the bill, as reported back, didn't give it a big enough role. As a result of the negotiations with the Minister and the changes that will be in the SOP, we have got Regenerate Christchurch now having a much greater role in providing advice on what plans should proceed, and particularly in the residential red zone, Regenerate Christchurch is the only agency which can be the proponent of a regeneration plan. And as Ruth Dyson noted, that residential red zone is a really central part of Christchurch because we are a place-based people here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and a lot of people who had homes in the red zone still have a very strong connection with it. As Ruth said, they left part of their life there. The government has spent billions of dollars in acquiring more than 6,700 homes, and there are very strong views in Christchurch about the future of the residential red zone. We've had an 18,000 signature petition presented and considered by the Parliament about the residential red zone. Some have strongly promoted parks there, cycleways, community gardens, a lot of public space. There's a need for improved flood protection, using some of that land to buffer from the more intense storm and weather events that we get. So the whole planning for the future of the residential red zone is critical to the future of Christchurch, and under this SOP, Regenerate Christchurch will be leading that. So we are very happy that there's been that quite major change there. And the bill, as it was reported back from Select Committee, risked emasculating Regenerate Christchurch from the very start because it still left too much power with central government rather than in Christchurch. So it's giving that much more influential role to this new agency, which has yet to be fully established, but has a very effective chair in Andre Lovett, who has led some very inspiring work at the Christchurch Arts Centre in restoring that. And so Regenerate Christchurch will be the major proponent in the residential red zone and be a major source of advice about whether regeneration plans proceed. One of the other areas that we have succeeded in getting changes is much more transparency around the planning process, making sure that agencies such as the other councils, that their advice is public before the public submissions occur, and making sure too that the Minister has to provide clear reasons when he or she decides whether to reject or approve a plan. The Green Party is not totally happy with this bill. We sought that there be a commitment in the plan process to public hearings, because a lot of the problems with Sarah's decision making has been that written submissions have been called for, but there has been no hearing process. And there is nothing worse than faceless decision makers making quite critical decisions and not knowing who they are. We didn't get that change in the bill, but I do encourage Regenerate Christchurch to ensure that there is a public hearing process. It just gives people the opportunity to front up to decision makers and to have their say. We remain troubled by the powers that are available to relevant government ministers in clause 42, which is to override plans and policies which have been prepared through due processes under other legislation. And that means some of the district and regional plans under the RMA, Local Government Act planning documents and bylaws, and regional transport plans. Government says those powers will be used frugally. The opposition will certainly hold them to account on that. But we did succeed here in getting some significant checks on the Minister's power to use clause 42 in the fact that there now must be public consultation. That wasn't in the bill as it was reported back, and the Minister also has to have regard to public views, which is a stronger test than just consider. So this whole process has been unusual. The debate desirably would have happened at Select Committee, but we congratulate the Minister that he was prepared to consider change. There would have been quite considerable costs for the government, I think, if the bill had remained as reported back from Select Committee. The negotiations have been good in the way they've been conducted. I thank officials who have put a lot of effort into these amazing flow charts, which, when you're dealing with a plan-making process, have been very helpful in showing the different stages and what the matters are to be considered at each stage, and would encourage the government to use more of this consultative process when it's developing legislation and the anchor projects in Christchurch, because we get better law where everybody is involved and where there is a strong provision for public input. And I think it shows that the opportunities that we are losing with the anchor projects and the secrecy around things like the convention centre, which is such a critical site in the central city and is so costly. We need to have this consultation both with the public and with other parties. But thank the Minister for the changes to this bill.